Loud and clear. I'm Dan Ballin. I'm Chief Executive of Ideas Crucible. I've been there as a founder 4 times, raised for several of them, exited twice, as well as raised for other companies and been board members and been involved with accelerators and venture capital companies. In my company focuses predominantly on fintech and I'd say deep tech, sort of C to Series A plus, but I've been there in the space for pre-seed rounds and M&A further along as well throughout my career across several continents. In terms of do's and don'ts, um, Do be focused on everything you do when you're meeting investors. To be clear, articulate, clear what your proposition is, who your customer is and who they're not, how you're going to reach them. Everything's about clarity and being succinct and sharp, particularly in the early days. Do be prepared. If you're not prepared, you'll get caught out later on. Investors really, they don't tend to do second time around. If you were no good first time around, they can be a little bit fickle and, they, never want to see you again, so to speak. So put the time and the effort in doing all the boring stuff, the deck, the financials, the partnerships, make sure you the strategy, everything, the accountants, the lawyers, all the other stuff, so that you go to them fully formed and ready versus, you're never 100%. I equally say, don't be a perfectionist. It's one of the reasons one of my startups failed was slightly procrastinating over getting everything right, but equally so, 80% is good, but don't go to 40%. And enjoy the journey and try and share it with the co-founders, all my experience, and make sure you've got some mentors on the way.
Thank you very much. That's brilliant. Well, my name's Anton Call. I'm an Albanian in London working with startups. Normally, right after they get investment, I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups and accelerators. Lately, I've been helping some angels and family offices with their due diligence and assessments. And we've started this just over 4 years ago, where I go out there and annoy people like Dan to come and join us on these panels to help founders for free. Um, Simply because my experience with startups has been an interesting one. I've started quite a few, and most of them have been monumental failures, really spectacular. But a couple of them didn't do too bad. And what I realized, and actually the more time I spent with other startups, what I started realizing is that one of the main reasons for failure, it's the fact that I didn't have access to the right advice at the right time that I could afford. And the more time I spent with other startups, I learned that that was actually the case for others too. So we started this with 3 people in the audience on the 29th of March 2021. And since then, we've had about 280,000 people that have joined us, where we've helped, I'd say, well over 2,000 founders. And we love doing this. So if you do have any questions, the best thing to do is simply put it in the chat now, drop it in the chat. We'll then give you the mic and you can ask the panel, i.e. today it's only Dan. Normally we try and have about 4 investors and or fundraising experts. But unfortunately today we had some last second cancellations due to some issues that some of our panelists had. And so we're going to be here now only until 1 p.m. And so that means 48 minutes. Therefore, please do not leave your questions for last second because we'll run out of time. And 2, just simply drop them in the chat. We'll then give you the mic and you can take it away. A quick reminder for those of you that are on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you don't need to spend an hour in front of the mirror. But what you do need to do is quickly go to startuptoscaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Fundraising Q&A 146. You click join, quick registration, gets you a link to your email. Then through that link, you can then join us here. But without further ado, we'll go on to the first question that was sent to us. This is from an insurtech founder in London, seed stage. She used to be an insurance broker. We're building an AI-driven platform for personalized insurance quotes. The challenge is explaining the complexities of insurance underwriting to tech-focused investors. How do I simplify our underwriting algorithms without losing key details, and what KPIs should I emphasize? to show scalability and profitability in the insurance space. This is funny, Dan, because we were at an event, the Lord Mayor's
Yeah.
Growth Unleashed the other day, and I think there was a chat that you knew that was talking about insurance, but the second thing, which I don't know if you saw them, there was a pitch about a company that they're doing AI agents for insurance. And literally just watching that pitch and hearing that pitch made me realize that I think within a couple of years max, thousands of insurance brokers and mortgage brokers throughout this country will literally have their lunch eaten by AI agents.
Yeah,
What
they were
would
a
you do
company called
here?
Meshed, weren't they? Meshed. They were part working
Can't
with the
remember.
InsurTech UK, I remember. They were all about using AI to reduce brokerage fees, basically. So there was a
Indeed.
general, I mean, in terms of technology and insurance has always been one of the hardest things, but the brokers has always been the pioneers in this space. It's where they were the first ones right in the early days of the internet to kind of adopt it. They were driving the big insurers at the end of the day. And this idea, though, but the interesting thing with disruptive space in insurance now is how somehow brokers are slowly getting disintermediated by these by the AI agents, I think.
That is true. That is true. What would you do here with these if you were advising this lady who started this in terms of how to simplify
So if they're going for seed stage insurance, I'm assuming they've already got some sort of pre-seed early investment, and they've got some sort of MVP there or some sort of product there at the end of the day. I think personalized insurance is possibly the way we're going to see things gradually go. It's taken some time. People have talked about it. In the same sense, we're seeing personalized medicine and that stuff. I think personalized insurance is very interesting. When you're going out for investment, even in technology, with the exception possibly with biotech, I'd say, there is a danger, particularly if you're from the technology side, to try and explain the technology or the vertical in some depths. So particularly if you're dealing with the early stage, the investors, maybe the venture partners or the associates, you don't really have to go into the explaining the complexities of the insurance underwriting. For a start, it's extremely complex. Insurance underwriting and reinsurance is a super specialist subject, and even a lot of people in insurance don't fully in the insurance machine don't understand it. It's often left to a very select specialist few. Fundamentally, you want to be selling this on the benefits of what it's doing. Is it doing something that's cheaper? Is it doing something that's better? Is it doing something that's faster? On your first 5-minute pitch, so to speak, yes, you do want the technical information behind you if they ask about it, but really sell it on the benefits story without, so if you're doing something really clever about underwriting, then explain that you're doing something and that it's a safe, assured, legal, above board. But really, you don't need to go into the technicalities unless you're dealing with someone who's technical. I think that will come down to the due diligence at the end of the day. So in terms of KPIs, I want to know what your platform's doing in terms of, revenue KPIs, in terms of what it's, profitability, in terms of who your competition is, that kind of thing. Scalability is usually something that you could maybe sell out by using technology as opposed to maybe even humans. Insurance is still one, in my view, a sector that is so ripe for disruption and is still got so much humans in the loops doing relatively low-level tasks in administration. So it's taken a long time, even before the big new world of AI came around. I mean, AI has been with us for years, advanced language models, to just get automation. So I think there's a really great opportunity in this space. So keep it, don't try and be technical. It's sometimes very disheartening, and I speak of this as a scientist and engineer myself, that they're not really interested in it. I once spent a long time explaining cyber insurance and what's going on, and they really didn't care. All they wanted to know is that they're going to be 10 times safer than they were if they bought another product in the day.
It's interesting. Thank you very much for that, Dan. Really appreciate it. What we can do now is go to another question. By the way, I'm putting them in the chat so you can read them as well. But I'm reading them out loud for those of you that are on the live streams. Although, again, please do remember that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there. So if you do want to understand anything, you'll need to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that, it's to go via our site, startup2scaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Fundraising Q&A 146. Click join. A quick registration will get you a link to your email with those details on joining. And then when you're here, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic and then we'll take it away. We are going to be here only for the next 41 minutes now. So don't leave it for too late either, please. And feel free to share this. You can share this link on your social media now if you think there's somebody out there who should be here too. Right, so another one from London, Dan, they're at pre-seed, and he's an ex-telco engineer, saying our startup focuses on reducing dropped calls and enhancing mobile network reliability in rural areas. We're preparing our pitch deck, but investors are questioning the scalability and market demands. What data or case studies can I include to demonstrate market needs and scalability in a niche like rural telco? That's an interesting one. What would you do here?
So I spent many part of my career working for BT and working with other telecoms providers and launching mobile operators. So this is a good fit for me. And it's we don't see much innovation in telecoms these days, to be quite honest, partly because of the lack of funding that a lot of them have big pension pots and really are currently in debt. So telecoms is surprisingly, particularly mobile telecoms, is not getting the attention by the utility companies. Maybe the likes of the Ciscos and Nokias and stuff maybe get there, so to speak. So it's good to see it. I'm spoiled living in London and traveling typically major cities that I don't see the reduced drop calls, but they are there and it's still a problem. And particularly in rural areas, and particularly when you're looking outside Western Europe and stuff, where the growth area is going to be in places like Africa and stuff. But there are data sources out there to demonstrate the needs. Obviously the regulators like Ofcom in the UK, companies like Rootmetrics are out there. You might want to kind of put together a pack with the various regulatory data in terms of and independent reports from the kind of Gartners and stuff, showing the kind of percentage of drop calls and the cost that this is having to those operators and stuff in terms of reliability. You need to make sure you picture this right, because there will be an error failure rate, which frankly if you're selling this to the operators that they're willing to tolerate. So is your solution going to be is this going to save them money or get them to win new customers by having better reliability at the end of the day? In terms of scalability for you, I think maybe if you've got a piece of kit that's able to reduce drop calls, maybe do some load testing. Pump through it thousands, hundreds of thousands, however many calls you can to show that you've got some uptime. Do some proper empirical evidence to actually demonstrate that you've been able to load this up and the calls are up and running. So maybe partner with a university to do some load testing on it. There's 4G test beds. There'll be 5G coming on when the 5G test beds, 6G coming back in 2027 when the new standard gets reviewed. So test it out on there at the end of the day. It's going to be very interesting with telecoms in terms of what kind of network you're doing. We're obviously sending the switch off of 3G coming in this year. So make sure you're choosing a network that's going to work for you. And make sure you're also not just competing with people doing over Wi-Fi as well, because we're going to see a lot increasingly. We're all using WhatsApp and Signal and various others. So you've got to make sure that this is going to be a growth market for you as well at the end of the day. But there is very good telecoms data, and it's worth working with if you're in the UK, like UK TIN, the telecommunications, and there's lots of independent agencies, and there's a lot. May get yourself around some of the round tables with some of the boards and stuff from where the likes of Vodafone and Virgin and various will sit, and they're always willing to share information, and you get involved in some of the committees to be able to share this. And by the way, the EU has loads of data and public meetings that you can attend on this as well.
And it's brilliant. The only thing I would add here is to perhaps focus a bit more on the international expansion side of things, because again, I used to work with telcos, but only to supply them with people rather than a lot of other stuff. But in doing that, you end up learning quite a few things when interviewing people. And I think this is probably, you could win quite a few points by saying, or explaining how you plan to expand internationally. I think there's much more.
I'd be somewhat inclined to even start internationally, to be honest, Anton.
Indeed.
Yeah, as we're starting to see some sort of pervasive network gradually getting there. It's not so much whether there is a network anymore in the UK, it's whether it's going to be a 2G, 3G. Everything's moved to data at the end of the day now. I'd go to where there's those rural areas which are growing. So maybe around sort of, parts of South America, we're already seeing mobile first already is in Africa, but it's very different depending which parts of Africa you're going to be. So yeah, don't necessarily go to where there is, and also checking it. It's worth sort of, yeah. And so, but if you speak with like the UK Telecoms Innovation Network, they will know their international peers and stuff. We're running we're very close to Vodafone, who've got a telecom solution innovation program, and they're in countries. We know them in the UK and Germany and the stuff, but they've got networks of partners in Egypt and far from places where this is more of a problem, for instance.
Indeed, thank you very much for that. Right, Gio, I think we should go to one more, well, not one more, but a few more questions. Just a quick reminder for those of you that have tuned in just now, this is Startup Fundraising Q&A. We're here to help startups with whatever questions you may have on fundraising in order to take your business to the next stage. There are literally no wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. We're taking questions on anything from your how to reach out to investors, perhaps, to pitch decks, data rooms, maybe valuations, equity, due diligence, grants, angel investors, VCs and corporate VCs, or even crowdfunding, and all the way to exits. If you are here in the call with us on Microsoft Teams, simply drop your question in the chat. I'll give you the mic, and then you can ask the panel. If you're on the live streams, please remember that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there. So you would have to join us here on Microsoft Teams instead. Quickest way to do that is via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. You'll then be able to click join, and then it's a quick registration that gets you a link basically to your email address, and then through that link you can join us here on Microsoft Teams. And now, without further ado, I think we should go for another question, and that is here we go. A marketplace for second-hand luxury goods. He's based in London. They're at seed stage. She says our current situation is that raising seed funds from a diverse angel syndicates, each with different views on ROI timelines. That's interesting. Question. We're raising seed funds for our luxury second-hand marketplace from a mixed angel syndicate, but ROI timelines expectations vary widely. How can we manage this diversity to avoid friction? Perhaps through phased investment milestones or clear exit benchmarks? Also, are there best practices in the UK for setting structured returns for syndicates in consumer tech sectors? That is definitely a question for our legal Q&A, but maybe Dan might want to add something here.
So I'm seeing the luxury market as a massive growth area at the moment, both by itself, luxury goods from perfumes to handbags. It's a growth area for small businesses that is very vibrant. I'm typically involved in the tech space, and I am seeing, like marketplaces is a good example. We're seeing areas, and it's a very vibrant vibrant activity at the moment. And I think this is a really great space to be. And if the person who's asked this question would at any one point like to get in touch with me, I can point them to a luxury accelerator that I'll be launching at the end of this year, which I'm involved in, which is covering helping businesses target their customers, whether it be in high net worth cities like Singapore or Hong Kong or London, and where they're going to get, this is more for slightly more established companies who are looking for getting traction. Because I think this is a very interesting area, you know, it's not my background at the end of the day. Because so for me, I'm going to advise this. This would have been a great question to have the founder on the call, actually, because there's questions on it. But I'd remind the founders, they are the captain of their ships at the end of the day. They should be the ones going out to the investors, telling them what their kind of typical, their ROI will be over a period of time. I mean, it's worth, you know, positioning yourself against the typical angel investment, you know, which typically has an annualized IRR of about 20 to 30%. I mean, for your kind of 10-year horizon, you get everything from 2x to 5x. Typically, investors looking for 4 or 5x. I'm seeing, you know, typically sometimes 3x, you know, but sometimes you can get top density, you know, you can get 10x's for those top 5 to 10% of your startups in your portfolio, which some people say 2x, well, that's not very much, but actually for your angel investor and high net worth was to put this into a bond, the best they probably could hope for was 10, 15, maybe 20% growth. So actually putting a chunk of cash in and getting a 3, 4, 5x is far better than what the markets are going to go. And it's far more exciting and far more interesting, particularly if they want to be able to, you know, have their hand on the board and make decisions and steer this ship. And there's always the greater chance, which you're not going to get with the bond market, that you could be kind of become a big company at the end of the day. So I would just position you against your competition at the end of the day, whoever they are, which is traditional marketplaces. Marketplace and traditional, and I don't think there really is anything. I mean, the thing you need to be careful if you're doing a luxury marketplace is your likes of your, I don't know what kind of luxury goods you're talking about, whether you're talking about clothes or shoes or fur coats or rings or whatever. But you might want to bear in mind that the likes of the Vinted and all those kind of players also have luxury goods on there. So how are you going to be different? How are you going to become the destination where people who want, you know, go to versus, you know, the more generalized marketplaces, which create from everything from your Primark, TK Maxx, right down to your, you know, your Louboutin shoes and your couture kind of thing. So how do you become that destination and you get targeted and stuff? But at the end of the day, I think you tell your angels. I don't think you should tranche it based on the fact they've got different ROI timelines. That's unusual, if anything. But you may want to tranche funding out so you minimize your dilution in the business. That's more normal, but don't tranche. You know, at the end of the day, you try and make sure your investors all have a similar mindset and a similar culture. Sometimes if you've got a crowd of 3 or 4 or 5 investors, and there's one that doesn't fit in, maybe they're best left out. It's always hard to turn money out, but you want to, you're getting rid of investors harder than getting rid of your husband or wife. And that's the statistic. You can, you know, in the UK and Western Europe, you can get quickie divorces. Getting rid of a board member is a nightmare. Make sure they're the right fit and the right culture and the right mindset and the fit with your agenda, and you steer the ship and let, you know, and let your board deal that at the end of the day.
Oh, that is amazing stuff. Thank you very much for that, Dan. For me, the only thing I would bear in mind is they don't always have to have board seats. But I definitely want to second what Dan said, that it can be quite a frictious life if you actually let the wrong people join your board. So that is key, and you need to be really sure about that as to who you bring in.
All investors are
Okay.
looking typically for
on.
an exit at the end of the day, Anton, and that's why they're in it as much as anything else. And so it is important to set expectations that this is going to, you know, should generate a good, healthy ROI. But there's a difference between managing expectations and letting them set the agenda. And you're right, they don't need to be on the board, particularly in early stages. But it's always good to have get your investors providing useful inputs, sort of investor regular meetings and roundtables, because they often, and particularly, you know, it's not just about the money with investors, It's about the smart money, as they say, where they bring knowledge and insight and traction and customers and grow your business. And so listen to those investors. If they've got credible marketplace, knowledge, and they can open doors, they can be a real asset as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Dan. I think I might have posted the next. Yeah. Okay, so we'll now go on to the next question. We've got 26 minutes to go, so perhaps we've got time for maybe a couple more questions after this. So for those of you that are here on our Microsoft Teams call, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic and you can ask whatever question you have on fundraising. For those of you that are on the live streams, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please remember that we are unable to monitor your questions live there. So you'd have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only. And you can do this quite quickly by going to our website, startupscaleup.club. Click on today's session, which is Startup Fundraising Q&A 146. You then click join. A quick registration gets you a link to your email, and through that link, you can join us. If, however, your questions today are not on fundraising, please save them for the other events we run. Mondays, talent; Tuesdays, product and tech; Wednesdays, growth; Thursdays, fundraising; second Friday of each month is UK Startup Law; and third Friday of each month is UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them on our site. And when you're there, why not also join our peer-to-peer community on WhatsApp? We've got some groups of founders, investors, and operators for you there. There's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of our site that you can click and join. Right here, so this is from a clean water tech founder in Wales. They're in Cardiff, seed stage, and he's a water management expert by background. He goes on to say, sorry, our startup provides a water purification device for households. We're exploring family office investments to fund production scale up. What questions should I ask family offices to gauge their long-term interest and fit? And how can I ensure that their involvement doesn't stifle future participation? That's a really interesting one, actually. And I tell you what, you can go first, Dan. But I'd love to provide maybe just a tiny bit of input based on my work with some family offices. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Dan.
I mean, I think the water purification's quite interesting at the moment. I'm working with a water purification company in Italy at the moment, and it is it's an interesting shift at the moment that's going on with water purification, because there's a growing amount of microplastics in the water that we're having in the West that's feeding through, and we're only becoming aware of, and the problems that they're growing. And it's a growing problem, this, as we use as the way we're processing plastics. Really big problem, particularly in developing nations. But actually, it's a bigger problem in the West than we really realise, because though our water looks clean and is being purified by the water boards and everything, they're actually not dealing with a lot of microplastics. So now, my initial thought is, how do you gauge long-term interest and fit and ensure their involvement does not stifle? Well, I mean, that's something you need to take into consideration with anyone you're dealing with, whether it be an angel, venture fund, venture capital, private equity, corporate venture capital. They all can stifle or equally accelerate or get involved or not be the right fit. And I don't think family offices are any exception. In fact, some family offices are actually the best at being hands-off, is my experience. So I don't think that particular issue is unique. It's something that you need to do when you're doing your due diligence on them as an investment, just like they should be doing due diligence on you as an investee. So check, ask their agenda, understand what they're interested in you, whether there's a strategic fit as well as a monetary fit, or whether kind of, back to the previous question, what kind of horizon they're looking to be involved in, whether they're going to come in for a follow-on round. And it also comes down somewhat down to the control you put in terms of the term sheets, whether they've got voting rights, board rights, tag along rights. And that comes down, maybe better one for the legal questions. I mean, I deal with this all the time in term sheets, but So, given you're doing seed stage, this does not necessarily probably translate very well to family offices who tend to kind of the 4 or 5 million plus ticket size. But the one thing this might play to is where family offices have foundations doing more on the philanthropic side of things. So there's a few family offices that either have a philanthropic arm, or maybe someone like UNICEF Ventures, for instance, or one of those kind of plays. There are some family offices we've seen in places like Israel, which have invested in this, where where there's no water. Dubai is a very interesting area because a lot of their water comes from salt water that has to go through desalination, for instance. I believe the Lego family was involved in something to do with managing water purification. So they are out there. But I think the first question, I'm probably, and this is where I'd love to see live Q&A questions answered by someone. I'd like to understand why you think the family offices are the first people you want to go out to. I'm not saying they're not, but maybe they're not at the end of the day. So foundations might be quite interesting there. Anton, maybe you're going to come in with your experience in family offices. I mean, I'm running a couple of family office events this year, in probably one in Cambridge, which maybe we could do the podcast from there as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Absolutely to bear in mind. That is brilliant. Thank you. I'll bear that in mind. Here's my experience. So, and Dan rightly mentioned that there are some big names out there who've got a family office arm. What I found is family offices tend to be a mixture of two bags. Number one, it's big sort of names that are behind, your I don't know, Shell or Lego or whatever. They will have the staff, they will have the means to get involved, and they actually do like to get involved and help way more than any other, let's call it institutional, i.e., like you have your VCs and so on, and a bit more than angels. But trouble with most family offices is that they are really small, and especially the ones that are not from these big brands or behind these big brands, rather, should I say. So they can be really small. You'll often have a brilliant lady who does pretty much everything. And then you have one or two people that try and look at the investment part. That can be quite tricky. And then you have in these family offices, you also have another important factor. You've got the two types. You've got the one type who, and I think Dan touched on this, who do it simply because they want to make money. And you've got the other type who do it as almost as a feeder to their main business or one of their businesses. So, for example, if you've got a firm who is, I don't know, let's say, who does mining or oil exploration, and they want to be seen that they're doing something good in that area, and if they're having, if that area has water issues, you may find them go after and invest in a company like yours, so that they can be on a newspaper or somewhere in local news that they've actually brought water to this area. Or perhaps they are, I don't know, there's a musician who's started up a company, who's got a family office, and they want to invest in music tech. So in my experience, these are the two things. But unfortunately, another thing I see is that family offices, the ones I've dealt with anyway, publicly, most people you talk to, you think they move quite fast, but actually they are quite reluctant because they often fear that, whether they're making the right decision or not. They actually take a very long time, unless, again, your business is right up their street and it's something that they've done, then that's a different story. They can be much quicker than most others. But in my experience, the right family office can go a very long way in actually helping you go to market and really open doors way more than angels, way more than VCs. And yes, I think traditionally family offices had bigger tickets, but I'm seeing now, Dan, family offices even investing in as little as 30, 40K just to get into a company early stage. And I'm seeing a lot more of those. And I think we'll see a ton more. One of the things that I've seen is with all these embargoes on Russians and also some Chinese, there's a few there's a few shady so-called family offices slash angels who it's not too difficult to trace back to, let's say, a Russian oligarch, i.e., somebody who's come in. They got a company in Serbia because
Well, you broke up
Serbia
there for a
is
minute.
not.
Yeah.
Pardon?
No, it's all right. For 1 minute, you broke up there, Anton. It's okay. I can hear you now.
I'm sorry. So no, I was saying about some shady family office. It's like, a Russian oligarch who has gone to Serbia, opened up a company, and through that, they are now investing in the UK. So there is an investment security, national security regulation that came in. I think this was a year or two ago, and we were very lucky to be invited to sort of provide, well, not evidence, but kind of consultation from the industry, by the people that actually made these laws and these regulations. And
Yeah, I mean, I should add that. I mean, family offices are not family offices are, other than maybe the less transparent. You need to. That's because they're often more private. But I should say, any investor you're taking, whether it be an angel investor or a VC, you need to
exactly
do your financial and check that they're not in mandated countries, and companies like us, Ideas Crucible, can support you in getting the financial DD and making sure that they're not red flagged in any way. I mean, some are genuinely legitimate, but then there's for instance, we work with an Indian investor who's very genuine, but just the nature of the Indian UK trade makes it quite hard to get money out from one country to another. So sometimes it can just be complicated. I mean, to me, actually, the single family offices are the ones that are often have the North Star goal for agendas like purification. But the challenge is they tend to be the ones putting bigger tickets in compared to the multifamily offices, where lots of small family offices are only kind of, got 10 million plus, and then collate their funding together, and they have a management fee, so to speak, managed by the office for multifamilies. So yeah, I bring this back down to so there's some small, if you can find a small family office where they're actually quite hands-on with the family and quite close, it's really good. But again, I think you need to figure out who is your target investor for this, and it might not be a family office.
Thank you very much for that, Dan. Right here, we've now got 13 minutes to go. I think we can take a few more questions. Let me see if I've put that in. Okay. Healthcare data analytics for GP practices in Leeds. She's at seed stage, and she says our healthcare analytics startup is structuring investing schedules for seed funding with NHS aligned investors interested in mission longevity. Could we create a vesting structure that demonstrates founder commitment whilst aligning with public health objectives? Would milestone-based vesting tied to NHS partnership milestones be a prudent approach? I'm really hoping she means investing for co-founders and early employees rather than investors. Am I getting this wrong, Dan?
I'm just reading it again, so I'm really sure myself, actually. So I'm getting the impression from this, they're talking about investors who are, how can I put, aligned with the values of the NHS.
Yeah, indeed.
So, which I support. and the general well-being and objectives that you would expect. Would milestone-based vesting be? I don't know whether the NHS partnership piece. Oh, I see. Maybe they've got this startup's got a practice with the partnership. I mean, you can have vesting schedules based on milestones. Just a general word on vesting. So, I mean, the vesting typically is the term by which you then gain ownership of your shares, for instance, as an investor, so to speak. It's there to protect founders as well. So, people don't walk away with a lot of. I mean, vesting is common, for instance, in share options for your team, for instance, maybe if they've got an EMI share.
Indeed.
Program.
No, that's what I meant, because in a way it sounds like she's saying vesting for investors. That's not really a thing, is it?
I don't know whether they mean NHS aligned investors as in they've got team members where they get some equity in the business. I mean, if that is the case, my general advice.
That's what I thought.
I mean, if that's what they are talking about, then as opposed to external investment, which typically, then yeah, if that's what it is, then milestone investing is. I genuinely, my advice with all vesting schedules is don't make them too complicated, or try and make them as easy as possible, because company milestones and objectives change and pivot. Most companies that succeed pivot at some point, even Amazon. And therefore, if you've got a vesting schedule which is aligned to a milestone which maybe is changed because you realign yourselves, you could be in a bit of a pickle. So normally you tend to see vesting schedules where they vest over a period of time, or when they maybe get the next funding round. You could put something in there maybe when you achieve like a customer or something. Let's say your customer is an analytics firm for GP practices, but on the whole, that just can get quite messy and complicated. If, for instance, you decide that the best way to make money for the business and for your staff is to provide healthcare data analytics to, I don't know, pharmaceutical companies or any other kind of company at the end of the day. So generally, a good measure usually is that your shares vest either on sale of the company or on the next funding round. And I would, though it strikes me that the person who's posted this question has the genuine interest of aligning this to the targets with the NHS and everything else, it could just get a little bit unwieldy and complicated. And maybe having a mission statement and some strategic values instead of putting this into the legalese contract might be the better thing to do. Is my view, Anton, on what information we've obviously been provided by the founder.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, in general, the rule of thumb is 1 in 4 when it comes to vesting for co-founders or team members. If that's what she's asking. If you're asking about that, what it means basically is, let's say you hire Dan as a co-founder or as an employee or as an advisor, Dan will have to work with you for at least a year to merit any of that equity. And then at the end of the first year, he gets 25% of the agreed equity. Second year, another 25%, and so on. Therefore, you, as Dan mentioned, you don't end up with somebody who's worked for 2 weeks with you and then now they've parted with, I don't know, 30% of your company.
Yeah, so if you've got a 3 or 4 year vesting schedule, that would make sense. The one thing you need to make sure you put in place is a cliff that at some point that person who's been working for you gets the 100% of the equity, and that's my one piece of advice. So don't leave them in a situation where they've been working for 3, 4, 5 years, let's say in a 5-year vesting schedule, and they don't get anything just because you've had a lucky break at the end of the day, or something, or you've pivoted or you changed or whatever it may be. So my advice would be to slowly vest shares, give the first tranche of shares within the first year, or when a major investment event happens, for instance.
Indeed. So what I see now with a lot of, especially when I'm helping people do DD, what I'm seeing a lot of is that 1 year cliff and then 4 years vesting in total. You can, Dan is absolutely right. The simpler you keep it, the better. But I do see, and I'm seeing a lot more people giving some kind of KPI related vesting, i.e., if you do this, you'll get that. But all startups have to pivot. So what I've seen done well, and I know this can be a bit abstract, but I've seen a few term sheets and agreements, rather founder agreements, shall I say, or shareholder agreements, as they're legally known, that the KPIs were percentile rather than actual figures. So if you get 10% of the income that the company makes in total for whichever year, your shares will rise by whatever number or percentage. I've seen that, and that kind of leaves things open then to various other things. I've also seen this sort of agreement with their CTO. If you build whatever, I can't remember now all the details, in basically faster time than they had initially thought would be the longest, then again, you get something extra. So there are ways, but it's really tricky. And again, because you would need to pivot, it may be not the easiest thing in the world to do. So maybe just keep it simple. Although I have to say, in the NHS, um, my lord, you're going to take a long time to get business. Although, on the other hand, all it takes is one trust to bring you in, and then that's it. You get access to the entire NHS. So it's quite a lottery ticket to play. But if you were working on, things like hard tech and deep tech in the healthcare, that you would take I don't know, God knows how many years to just build your first prototype, then you need that vesting prolonged that goes beyond the sort of rule of thumb at the moment in the market, which is 4 years. That would be my advice.
Percentage
Dan,
investments is pretty common,
Yeah, go on.
and but there's different vesting terms you can see in the same company for employees, founders, advisors, contractors. So that might sometimes happen. You might have different vesting terms for different types of people that are working with you, that you maybe want to try and give them some incentive to work on with you, particularly if you're not very cash rich. But generally, a cliff period of 1 year is or less is normal.
Very good point there. Thank you very much, Dan. Dan, we've got 4 minutes to go, so we wrap it up.
If the, yes, yeah, other than yes, I think 4 minutes.
I think I have at least 5 other questions, or no, I'm lying. 7 other questions.
Well, we're here
they
next
sent for
Thursday, and I believe you've got a larger panel. So my
Exactly.
advice to everyone would be to dial in and actually ask the question, and we can actually have a bit of a conversation with them, and make sure and maybe see if they're finding this advice useful. Certainly, all the social media says they do, but it would be good to make it a little bit more interactive.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. And if nothing else, I can guarantee that the answers will be much better if we have you here to ask follow-up. So if nothing else, at least you can get some decent questions and get some decent answers to them as well. Dan, any parting words for us?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my parting word would always be as I thoroughly enjoyed my time as a founder. I'm not going to say it was easy. It was hard flipping work at the end of the day. I was long hours, but it was invigorating and exciting. And every day I jumped out of bed thoroughly excited, even if I was shattered at the end of it. So get yourself some really good advisors, people who will really listen to you, that have been there, gone the t-shirt. Be careful of those advisors who like giving advice but don't have any experience as well. Maybe the counterbalance to that. Don't rush. Hasty startups tend to fail. So more speed, less haste. It is sometimes a little bit more of a marathon and a sprint. Try and maybe get it to being a half marathon, but so that's my advice possible, or quarter marathon. And try and enjoy it, and find a difficult problem to solve. If you're solving a difficult problem, you're far more valuable to an investor than someone who's trying to do something simple and just go make it big. So I like people solving difficult problems who are likable, coachable, easy to get on with, and are creating a healthy environment and potential for some good employers of the future, and a flagship company. So yeah, best of luck and enjoy yourself, and maybe see you on the call next week.
Here. Thank you very much for that, Dan. Right here, a couple of quick reminders. Number one, please do join our WhatsApp community. We've got some peer-to-peer groups of founders, investors, and operators. You can find that on our website, top and bottom of our site. There's a WhatsApp icon you can click to join. Also, we run 6 regular events: Mondays talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup-to-scale-up.club. Simply click join under your preferred Q&A, and you'll be able to quickly register there. As far as my parting words are concerned, I guess here is that just remember the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime, and be kind to yourself as well as everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, you have a brilliant weekend. Normally we get about 4 or we try to get about 4 panelists per session. So if you'd like to join us on Monday, we will have some amazing stuff on talent, and we'll be trying to help you grow your team, basically. With that in mind, thank you again, and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now. Thanks, Dan.